Yeah, you are live now. You're all set. Okay, call to order the March 8th, 2024 meeting of the Warren County Board of Ethics. It is 1:30 PM. I'm going to call the roll. Members, Anne Marie Scheidegger.
Here.
Tim Diaz,
Here.
James Hicks,
Here.
Loretta Labar,
Here.
G. Thomas Moynihan.
Here.
Alternate members, Gary Fishlock.
Here.
And Paula Hayes.
Here.
Quorum is established.
Welcome, everybody, to the Warren County Board of Ethics. There was an agenda that was previously posted on the Warren County website for the meeting today, March 8th, 2024 at 1:30. And one of the first orders of business, which I recommend to the board to consider, would be for nomination of vote on the chair and the vice chair for the Board of Ethics. The chair for the Board of Ethics will have potentially some roles and responsibilities in addition to just being a board member. And part of it would be the first contact with my office, the county attorney's office. I guess I'll introduce myself as I am Larry Coleman, county attorney for Warren County. My office tends to work as the administrative support for the Board of Ethics. So as documents come in and out of the county regarding the Board of Ethics, it will come to my office. And we would reach out to the chair to determine what, if any, actions the chair and the board will take regarding the documents that will come. Welcome. I mean, you guys just got here a little while ago. Thanks for volunteering. And I guess the question is, are there any other volunteers, or do any of the volunteers wish to volunteer for that additional responsibility of chair? Judge Moynihan, is there anyone else that is interested in the position of chair? Seeing none, guess we can take a vote. I don't think we have to do a roll call on it.
No.
No.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Anyone wish to be the vice chair, second chair, which would be responsibilities would primarily be filling in as the chair in the absence of the chair of the board. Loretta, I see. Anyone else interested? Seeing none others, maybe we can we could submit that to a vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Super. Well, congratulations and thank you. The rest of the agenda for today is really just to provide an overview of some of the rules that come from state statute as well as the county code of ethics. And then hopefully to move forward with a plan for the next scheduled meeting of the Board of Ethics. So on the discussion items, the first thing I like to just cover is the open meetings law. And again, this is just an overview. Primarily, the open meetings law is a state statute that requires that whenever a public body meets, for example, the Board of Ethics, for the purpose of conducting public business, that it be done in a manner consistent with those statutes and rules under the Public Officers Law, Article 7. The Board of Ethics, the Warren County Supervisors, when they enacted the Code of Ethics, made a determination that the Board of Ethics would operate under the open meetings law. Even though the Board of Ethics role
is limited to providing advice and recommendations and not actually taking any policy or administrative action as a result of the work of the board. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the code of ethics. But for purposes of the open meetings law, the reason we will have our agendas published beforehand, the meetings notified, or the public notified of meetings beforehand, and then have them live streamed, open to the public, and also saved to the county website for future viewing, is because that's one of the requirements for the board to operate under the code of ethics. Now, part of a public meeting, it can include what's called an executive session. An executive session is a portion of the public meeting that's not open to the general public. In order for a portion of the meeting to be closed to the general public, there has to be a very specific basis or reason for the closing of the meeting. A number of different reasons are provided for in the state statute. The one that may come into play for the Board of Ethics from time to time is under section 105, subparagraph 1F, which refers to the discussion of any matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person. Should the board be considering a discussion about a matter that falls in that category, what could happen or would happen would be there would be a motion from a member to go into executive session for that particular matter. There would be a vote on it. And if the majority of the members present voted to go into executive session, then the open meeting would close. The recordings would go off, the doors would close, any public members would have to leave, and the board would be allowed to have discussions only on the matter for which the meeting was closed to discuss. There's no action or vote that occurs in that executive session. That would occur when you come back out into the public meeting, should there be a need for a vote at the end of that closed session. All of our meetings, there will be minutes that are produced, thanks to the clerk of the board. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They'll be provided to the board members as soon as they are available after the meeting ends. And then at the beginning of the next meeting, there'll be a motion to approve minutes from the prior meeting. We want to ensure that we carefully comply with the open meeting rules. Because if the board should violate those rules, and have discussions about topics that are before the board, either outside of an official open meeting, or inappropriately in an executive session, there is the ability for members of the general public to challenge that action by initiating a lawsuit against the county and the Board of Ethics under what's called Article 78, which is just the article number under the civil rules for the state of New York, where that process and procedure are listed. We just want to avoid that. So we try to stay as pure and clean within the rules of the open meetings law as we possibly can. And if there's an error or mistake, we try to immediately acknowledge that and make sure the public's aware that it occurred. So what does that mean? It means if two of you bump into each other in the store and are chatting, it's probably best not to chat about business. That's not really a meeting. A meeting would occur whenever there's a quorum present, which for the purposes of this board will be 3 members. But as a practice, I gently recommend that you limit the discussions, especially since much of what's discussed is confidential until it's made public, that it's limited to discussions when the board is present and the meeting has started to have those discussions. Certainly, if there were 3 members who should bump into each other in the grocery store, you definitely want to be careful about the discussions you have, because in theory, that's enough people to trigger a meeting. Should the conversation flow into, boy, can you believe what happened at the last meeting? That's just something you want to try to avoid at all costs. And if there's any questions about that going forward, my role is to act as the legal advisor for the board, and I'm more than happy to try to assist and aid in better understanding some of those rules. Now, in addition to the executive session, there's also an ability to have an executive session for matters that are made confidential by federal or state law. What does that mean? Well, for my purpose and the purpose that primarily it served for the Board of Ethics in the past, is your legal counsel can engage in attorney-client conversations with the board members outside of the general public's presence and participation. So that could be on some rare occasions a basis for an executive session in addition to the one that I mentioned a few moments ago. That's a real high-level view of open meetings law. Primarily between my office and the clerk of the board, we'll work to make sure that what has to happen behind the scenes to comply with the statute does happen. The key piece is just ensuring in your day-to-day lives that we don't trip up by accidentally having a quorum present and engaging in conversations that should be reserved for the open meeting. The next item is the local law 2 of 2022, which is the Warren County Code of Ethics. This document's available on the webpage for the Board of Ethics. If you haven't had a chance to look at the Warren County website to include the webpage for the Board of Ethics, I would encourage you to do so. There's a lot of, hopefully you'll find that there's some good information on there. That's really information for the public, but it's a good place if you need to look up something quick. It'll always be there and it's always easy to get to. And one of those documents is the code. I'm not gonna go through it section by section. I think what I'd like to cover today primarily is under section 20, which is page 9 of 18. You have a copy, great, and if not, well, I'll make sure we have paper copies for everyone at the next meeting. And basically, section 20 is dedicated to the Board of Ethics. It lays out that there are 5 members, a majority of whom shall not be officers or employees of Warren County or a municipality. Our one member who is the member of from a municipality is Anne Marie Scheidegger from SUNY Adirondack Community College. And just so the board is aware, the community college is sponsored by Warren County. And that's the actual term that's used in the statutes regarding education and community colleges. And as a sponsor, as a institution and a community college that's sponsored by the county, the comptroller's office in opinions as well as decisions has clearly stated that it qualifies as a municipality under the definition that's provided under state law. Now, I lay that out because the definition for municipality under state law is specific for the Code of Ethics and the Board of Ethics in the state of New York. So often when people think about what is a municipality, their day-to-day thinking about that might be different than what the statute provides on the definition of what qualifies as a municipality. The other four primary members are all members of the general public. And that ratio complies with the requirements not only of section 20, but also of the general municipal law for the state of New York. In that section 20, there's a couple of core responsibilities that's placed on the board. One of which is issuing advisory opinions. So the Board of Ethics for Warren County is a safe harbor for employees and other individuals who may have an ethical concern raised by the board, by the Code of Ethics, rather. And what does that mean? It means that the board will have a process and a procedure for individuals who are employees or others connected to the county to file and request the board to look at a particular factual situation that's real and may occur in the near future, and then to provide an advisory opinion to that employee on how to proceed. So long as the employee follows that recommendation as it's provided, they will not be subject to a future claim that they violated the Code of Ethics. And that's what we mean by safe harbor, is that you have the ability to give that guidance on whether the activity can occur, and if it can occur, how should it occur to comply with the requirements of the Code of Ethics as well as the state general municipal law. The second area has to do with complaints. Complaints that are received. They can come from a number of sources. The Board of Ethics may initiate their own investigation upon a motion that passes by a majority of the members. And they can also come from any other source, primarily the members of the general public or employees of the county. And the requirements for filing a complaint are more flushed out and detailed in the proposed rules of the board, which we will be discussing in a moment. And then the third core area is in reviewing financial disclosure statements. When the Board of Supervisors enacted this Code of Ethics on page, in section 7, which is on pages 3, going into page 4 of the code, it lays out the requirements for the annual disclosure. From the big picture view, every new employee of the county is required to fill out the financial disclosure statement within 10 days of starting. And then every employee on an annual basis is required to refile a financial disclosure statement before the end of January of that new calendar year. The rules go on to lay out a date that the filed listings will be approved by members of the Board of Ethics by February 14th of each year. That's a very difficult date to hit, as we all can tell by being here, because the Board of Supervisors did not approve this Board of Ethics until we entered into 2024. So it's something that we'll have to look at to change as far as a date for review. the next issue though, and the real important date is going to be that within 90 days of notification, basically, did we receive and did the board receive and review all of the financial disclosure statements? Were they sufficient? And if anyone has not filed, ensuring that that gets reported for further follow-up and action to the county administrator and then to the chair of the Board of Supervisors as well. So we'll catch up with those financial disclosure statements. Again, my office serves as the administrative support. So they've been filed with my office. And then we will develop, hopefully for the next meeting, a plan to have the board members review and discuss those statements, especially ones where there might be any questions or concerns that come up. Are there any questions on the code of ethics, anything I've talked about, but really the code of ethics, the board of ethics, the constitution of it, the 5 members, the 2 alternates, and then those 3 core functions, I'll call them, of advisory opinions, addressing complaints, and then reviewing financial disclosure statements.
Do we try to avoid email discussions as well, or because email is documentable? It's okay.
Yeah, I would encourage not to reply all on emails. Me and my staff will do our best to avoid starting a conversation through email. Normally, our emails are going to be, we need to schedule a meeting. It'll be procedural to try to get everyone in and together. Or on occasion, it may be providing information for review prior to the meeting. But I would recommend, there is some case law that discuss what happens when the board starts debating by email particular issues that are the type of issues that should be discussed in the open meeting or in the executive portion of an open meeting. So I appreciate the question. It was also, that sometimes we'll use a blind copy, meaning a way to email everybody at the same time. But if you need to email back, it would prevent you from emailing the entire board. I'd prefer not to do that, but whatever works to kind of keep us in line with the open meetings laws is kind of my goal. Any other questions, thoughts? Super. I believe everyone at this point has submitted and filed their statement of financial disclosure. Thank you for that. As we set up each of you with a county email address, hopefully over by early next week, there'll also be follow-up emails for annual training that's required from every employee of the county, which includes, even though you're volunteering, you're considered employees. Congratulations. So you'll be getting a follow-on email with the training, that's annual training for ethics. Takes plus or minus about 30 minutes or so. And at the conclusion of that training, there's the ability to download and print a certificate. I would ask that each of you do that as you finish it. And if you can email it to me or just bring it to the next meeting, I can then match it up to your financial disclosure statements when we put them together and file them. Brad?
Excuse me, when would that annual training take place?
Typically, everyone in the county does it on an annual basis within the first 30-day window when they're also completing and filing their financial disclosure statements. I suspect we'll have that out to you next week.
Okay,
Normally, a new employee who's starting would go through human resources, and on that first day, that video would be one of the items that would be reviewed and covered along with the other policies that the board members have received already and signed acknowledgements for as well. So we're kind of doing it a little spread out only because you're not coming in as full-time employees, but we're still going to get it all done pretty quickly.
Thank you.
On D, draft rules for the Board of Ethics, we will, there's a set of rules that are currently on the website that were used for the last board. We will circulate, my office will circulate back out to everyone a copy that's marked as a draft. We'll also provide that online before the next meeting for the public to view. With the hope that part of the agenda for the next meeting can also include a review and discussion of those rules and whether they're acceptable or if there's any changes that the members would like to make before we enact them as a process and procedure to follow going into 2024 and 2025. Which then leads us to 4F, which is the scheduled meeting dates for 2024. I don't know if everyone's, I don't really want to engage kind of in a review of everyone's schedule during the open meeting. But what my office can do is send out an email with some available dates, probably in the next 2 weeks, to try to get everyone back in to really take that next step of getting the rules in place that we're going to operate under, or that each of you will operate under on the board. And then start addressing financial disclosure statements that have come in, as well as any other matters that need to be addressed at that time. So not thoughts on dates, but any concerns about having another meeting scheduled in the next 2 weeks? Well, that's the whole agenda that I had today. My hope is that you will hear from me a whole lot less at all future meetings, but it's probably the most efficient and best way to get everybody on the same page and up and running. The last portion of every public and open meeting is whether there's any public comment and privilege of the floor. So I'll just ask if there's any public comment from any members of the public or members of the board. Well, with that said, we won't schedule the next meeting date and time today, but is there a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
Second.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.